What is going on, Pats Nation? You guys already know who it is. Patriots Global here, back with another video, and in this one, I want to talk about a couple of players that the New England Patriots could look to trade before the start of the regular season. Now is the time where teams are starting to look at players that they could potentially trade. Now, first up is a guy that I haven't heard anybody really talk about when it comes to the Patriots trading players, but every year there's guys that are either surprisingly released by this team or surprisingly traded. A couple of years ago, the Patriots made a couple of surprising moves right at roster cutdowns to get to 53 players, trading Keon Crossan, who was a rotational defensive back for them and a core special teamer. Very good young player who we didn't expect them to trade. And then also their former second-round pick in Duke Dawson. Now, Myles Bryant being a former UDFA, anything the Patriots get at that point is excellent compensation for what they originally put in for him. And unfortunately, you just look at this Patriots roster, and there is a lot of NFL talent, a lot of true NFL talent, and just unfortunately, you're not going to be able to get all of these guys on your roster. And what you have to understand, too, is there's guys that the Patriots are going to release with thought to bring them back to the practice squad. Unfortunately, there's going to be guys that are just too good. They have a genuine NFL talent that a team is going to want to put them on their 53, and I think one of those guys would be Myles Bryant, who unfortunately, I just don't think that there's enough room for him on this current roster. There's not a true spot for him, and if the Patriots release him, another team just going to grab him. They're just not going to get anything for him. He could be a rotational to starting piece for another team. And really, this Patriots secondary is just loaded. And with the size of Myles Bryant just being in that 5-foot range, he's not going to be an outside perimeter guy. And you have Jonathan Jones back. He's expected to play some outside corner, perimeter corner mostly, but I still expect to see him in the slot from time to time. And Marcus Jones, the rookie, he's pretty much being pinned in as your starting slot cornerback. That leaves questions on, okay, where are you going to even play Myles Bryant? Because Bryant either plays in the slot, or he plays a little bit of safety, and unfortunately the Patriots are in a position where they're stacked at safety also. Kyle Duggar, Jabril Peppers, Joshua Bledsoe, I think the Patriots would play over Myles Bryant, Devin McCourty, Adrian Phillips. Not to mention that I think there is a real spot for Shaun Wade on this team. I think that Shaun Wade brings more to this Patriots team than somebody like Myles Bryant, and Shaun Wade's actually younger too, so he brings you a little bit more youth there to your defense. Again, I do think there's teams that would be out there that would be interested in trading for Myles Bryant, not just for, what he can bring to defense. He brings some versatility there also, but also on special teams. We haven't really seen much from him in the past from a special teams ability, especially as a returner, but in training camp and the preseason so far, his ability as a return man on special teams has been very, very underlooked, and I thought he's been doing really, really, really well in that category. Unfortunately, I think the Patriots are going to end up going with a guy who isn't just going to be a pure returner. They're going to want a guy who can contribute on defense and can contribute on special teams, and I just don't really think that guy at this point is going to be Myles Bryant. I think that guy you'd look at more in this case would be Marcus Jones. I could see the Patriots trading him for somewhere between a 5th to 6th round pick. I think that's very, very reasonable. And a team I could honestly see trading for him, I think there's several teams you could list here, but man, it would not surprise me to see the Patriots make a last-minute trade here with the Raiders. Josh McDaniels obviously ties back there. They just had joint practice together, and that Raiders secondary is probably the worst part on their team right now, so they could look to use some depth right there. Now, next up here really would not be a surprising one, in my own opinion, and that's Isaiah Wynn. I honestly see benefits and disadvantages of trading Isaiah Wynn. Now, we are hearing, and this could just be rumors, this is nothing confirmed, that Isaiah Wynn has not been a happy camper. He's not been a happy camper in training camp, this postseason, not postseason, offseason in general, and that could be a big part of him randomly getting switched from left tackle to right tackle. We haven't really seen him a lot this offseason. If a practice was voluntary, he decided not to show up, which isn't anything uncharacteristic of Isaiah Wynn. but he's also very, very inconsistent. The fact that the Patriots decided to switch from left tackle to right tackle just goes to show that he is expendable, and I do think the Patriots are genuinely looking into that potential trade. Because at the end of the day, it's a lot easier to find a quality right tackle than it is a quality left tackle, which explains the switch for Trent Brown to left tackle. Not to mention that the Patriots have guys in-house that I think could potentially get the job done. I think Yannick Kajust has looked really good while he gets starting reps and has looked good in general this offseason. Unfortunately, you don't have a lot of tape on him because since the Patriots drafted him a couple of years ago in 2019, he has been really injured, and I think that's the biggest question is if you trade Isaiah Wynn, where is Kajust in the standpoint of health and availability, because the best ability, as we all know, is availability. And I think that there's not a lot of players that the Patriots are willing to trade that they can get quality draft capital for, but I think Isaiah Wynn is one of those guys. You know, he can play left tackle. We're not exactly sure how he's going to play at right tackle just yet. But offensive linemen in general, especially good offensive linemen, quality offensive linemen, and Isaiah Wynn is a average to slightly above average offensive lineman, do go for good prices. You're not going to get him for a first-round pick, but he's not someone that I expect going for like a 5th, 6th, or 7th round pick. At the end of the day, I truly believe that this Isaiah Wynn trade comes down to what the Patriots could get in return. I do know that teams are very hesitant to make this trade and give the Patriots anything of high quality because they are scared of where he is positionally, whether he's a right tackle or left tackle. Obviously, his injury history, and not to mention the fact that any team trading for him would have to take on that 5th-year option of about $10 million. Now, lastly on my list is going to be a wide receiver. You guys probably won't be surprised by this one, but it's Nelson Agholor. And I look at these Patriots receivers. The Patriots are receiving calls about their receivers. I made a whole video on this if you want to know more about it. And I just look at their receiving depth chart, and there's not a lot of guys that personally I would trade. I think you trade Devontae Parker. That totally negates everything you did this offseason. You trade Jacoby Myers, you're getting rid of your best receiver, your number one and most consistent receiver over the last couple of seasons. As we all know, Jacoby has led the Patriots in receiving yards and yards over the last 2 seasons. I think trading Kendrick Bourne is an absolute mistake. The contract you're getting him on is super friendly. Not to mention he's Mac's favorite guy, his number one guy, his go-to guy. And I also think that Kendrick Bourne is really one of the only players outside of Jonnu Smith that gives you after-the-catch ability. The only guys that I really see with a potential trade here would be Nelson Agholor and then one of these fringe guys, whether that's Christian Wilkerson, Trey Nixon, or Lil Jordan Humphrey. But I think Nelson Agholor has the most value to him, especially after how he's performed this offseason. Now, the Patriots originally, just a few months ago, as we entered this new league year in March, had rumors coming out that they were willing to trade Agholor. They put him on that trade block. They were listening to offers from teams. You know, the Patriots at one point during the draft process at the Combine were looking to potentially make a move for wide receiver Robbie Anderson. And honestly, if you're going to trade Nelson Agholor, I really believe that now is the time. And maybe this trade is less likely now that Tyquan Thornton's going to be out for, 1 to 2 months. But Agholor has a true market because of how he's performed in the Patriots training camp due to his speed also. And just the rep that he's getting around the league currently. I think he's even showed out a little bit here in the preseason. He caught one of the best passes and one of the best offensive plays from the Patriots. Probably the best offensive play we saw from the Patriots this entire preseason. You could say that maybe he's more of a trade deadline type of guy, but I think at that point you're risking the value you could get for Nelson Agholor because, yeah, maybe that could rise a little bit and you could get maybe a little bit more out of him at the trade deadline, but you're betting on him continuing the reputation, if not better, than what he's put up so far this offseason, because if he becomes quiet from the start of the season to the trade deadline period, then the value you're going to get for him is significantly going to drop. And yeah, I do believe the Patriots need at least one speedster on this offense. I've believed that since we saw Nelson Agholor miss a couple games last year, and opposing defenses totally took advantage of the Patriots. But again, Tyquan Thornton's not missing the whole year. He's expected to be back as early as October, so you just have to go a few weeks without him if you do decide to trade him. But what are your guys' thoughts on this video and a couple of players I could see the Patriots potentially trading here right before roster cutdowns? Let me know in the comment section below, as not Agholor, but also a couple of players that you think that I didn't name that the Patriots could potentially trade and why. Let me know in the comment section below. Remember to leave a big like on this video, and of course, subscribe to the channel for all of your New England Patriots news. But like always, I appreciate all of you for watching, and go Patriots.